Okay, today we're going to be talking about anchoring bias in terms of cognitive biases. So, anchoring bias occurs when we receive a first piece of information, which we call the anchor. And then individuals tend to rely very heavily on this anchor piece of information, which then affects their subsequent judgment and decision making. So, anchoring really happens for three main reasons. The first one is because humans are cognitive misers. We try to seek out solutions that can help reduce the total amount of cognitive load and effort within our brain. And anchoring bias and just things that we can revolve thinking around is able to help us simplify complex decisions into really quick, easy, and fast ones. The second one is also similar to the first one in terms of system one thinking, is that we like to take these mental shortcuts to save cognitive energy. These mental shortcuts are also known as heuristics, and heuristics just kind of help us operate through life without having to think about everything at every second. And the third one is rationalization, because humans don't like to be wrong about things. So once an anchor has been planted, we start to rationalize around this anchor and make that value or make this decision make more sense to us because we don't want to admit that it was wrong. So a study that really looked at anchoring bias actually did it in a legal setting. And two German scientists back in 2001 were investigating whether anchoring bias would actually influence sentencing decisions of legal professionals in a courtroom setting. And their main findings were really that professionals that should be able to make actual justified decisions were actually relying a little bit on system one thinking and taking these biases instead of actually not really doing their job, but instead of rationalizing it in a logical manner and completing all of their tasks in the way that they're meant to. So the methodology of this was that they separated them into two groups, one with a high anchor of a sentencing of 34 months and one with a low anchor of sentencing of 2 months. And this was the prosecutor's demand, so those were the two groups. And it turns out like the anchoring that was given here, which was either the high one, 34 months, with the low one, 2 months, actually pulled the results of the actual sentence towards that one. So the 34 high anchor group in the end received a 28-month total sentence, whereas the low anchor 2-month group received a 18-month result. So you would expect that as professionals, they would end up gravitating towards the same result if they are kind of looking at the case the same way. But because the prosecutors demanded a different number, that then changed the way they thought about the scenario and led them to have a different sentencing result. In terms of real life application, anchoring bias is mostly used in a commercial setting, especially in retail settings, because when you walk into a store, you don't actually know how accurate the price point that someone is offering you is. They could be putting a discount label on it that says maybe the shirt you're trying to buy is in fact only $50 to start off with, but they put a marker on it that says it was originally $500. They crossed that one out in a way that you can still see that it was supposed to be sold at $500 and put a discount price of $100. See, this $100 is still above what it was originally worth, only $50, yet you take that $100 because looking at the $500, which was your high anchor, your decision would be that, oh, like, it's a good deal. Whereas if you were thinking logically, you could probably get to the conclusion that the shirt was not actually worth $100. So the thing about anchoring bias is to really just take your time to rationally think through the decisions that you're making and whether or not the information that you're going off on is actually reliable or there to kind of throw you off.